Are we live? Are we live? It says we're live. It says we're live. We're live, Rae.
We're live.
I'm so happy to be here with this beautiful woman this afternoon. Hey everybody, wherever you are joining from. Having some technical difficulties with Facebook, but that's okay. Thank goodness for StreamYard. We are here, joined by the wondrous Rae Chesny. I
Hi.
am so excited.
I'm
Golly.
excited too. I'm always a huge fan, always have been a huge fan of you and Imagiread, so it is my honor to be here.
I'm so happy to hear you say that because honestly, I think we're huge fans of each other and the work because we get it, and we're gonna dig into the interview. I promise I'm gonna let Rae do more talking. I'm not gonna do all the talking today because it's so much to say. But quick story, because I try to do this at the beginning of all of the Meet the Authors, like how we met and what the synergy was, because this program in and of itself is about changing the way we look at education, most especially culturally responsive literacy development. Through the pandemic, even prior to the pandemic, literacy is and has always been a challenge for our community, especially for our children. And those of us who love to read, we're bibliophiles, we're avid readers, we're voracious. It's still a privilege because we had teachers that were invested, right? And so it's our due diligence to make sure that our children and our community has that same thing. So I think, who was it, Rae? Who was it that introduced us, or did we just stumble upon each other on Instagram?
It's okay. This is one of those like kismet friendships and sisterhood
Oh,
relationships.
totally.
I don't even remember, but it's literally been years. I was trying to think what you were saying, and I was like, well, what is the story? I don't even remember.
Well, we is here, and that's all that
Yes.
matters. We is here. Well, then let's start here. Let's start here. When we did stumble upon each other, it was kismet. Back then, you were you had already done some incredible things with Genius Patch, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, tell us about Genius Patch.
All right, so Genius Patch is actually a nonprofit I started back in 2017. It started from a single program that was absolutely nothing I expected to do. I was a published children's author at the time, and I was dropping off some books to a local church in Detroit. Tiff and I are both Detroit girls. So I was dropping off some books to a deacon at a church, and he had been a mentor to me when I was younger. And so he asked me, what have you been up to? I had moved to Pennsylvania since we had known each other and I was back in town. And so I said, oh, I had this idea for this program where we take my children's books with main characters of color and then use them to create programs for kids where they can learn anything. But the connection to the main character is the main part.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was not eloquent at all how I explained it. It was just this random idea I had. And so he said, oh, you should meet our youth minister. He took me upstairs and introduced me to Reverend April Hearn, now Reverend Dr. April Hearn. And I told her my idea, and she said, that's awesome. We're doing it for summer camp. And I had no background in teaching, nothing. And so I'm like, okay. I don't know who said okay because I knew I had no business doing this, but I said okay anyway. And a
Mm-hmm.
few weeks later, it was about 3 weeks later, like we did it as a summer camp, and it was 120 kids, K through 6. Yes, yeah, and I've been doing summer camps and workshops and programs around literacy and around this concept of using children's books featuring main characters, excuse me, of color to get children of color interested in literacy-based activities. And so Genius Patch, I mean, it was the next logical step because it was getting some interest, even partnerships with like Michigan State University. And they were like, okay, well, we got to be able to get you some donations. And so I was able to start the nonprofit. And just like how Literacy Come to Life started with someone saying, oh, that's a good idea. That's kind of the pathway that I follow. And so it evolves and there's iterations of it. One of the programs I designed under Genius Patch after it was established was the Junior Storyteller program. And that took the idea because I started doing these summer camps and I realized I was very honest with myself. I'm like, all right, you're in your late 20s. You're old to these kids. You're old to them. And
Mm-hmm.
so here I was, it bothered me because I felt like another adult telling these kids, okay, look at me, look what I did, you can do it too.
Right.
So I came up with the idea. I was like, well, there's all these barriers to being interested in literacy, to academics, to even believing in yourself for historically underrepresented groups, mainly children of color. And so I was like, well, we got to do something to combat that now. And so I came up with the idea for Junior Storyteller. And it's funny because just today I was looking at a picture when I was working on the first iteration of the workbook for this program. And I'm holding my son, who's now 5. Like, he's literally laying in my arms. And I
The
think I was sick
baby.
at the time. Yeah, there's
Mm-hmm.
tissue around. So very scrappy, this idea that I could let children be the one to tell the stories and to create these books. And
Totally.
so that program has been, I mean, that is like the main program that I do now. Even during a pandemic, we've done it virtually. And it's been amazing. Traveled as far as Ghana to do the program with children there and to start to explore the preservation of those groups who speak Tree and Swahili,
Mm-hmm.
having books printed by kids, writing them in their native tongue. And so that's what I do. I come up with solutions every time I see a problem, especially for our babies. I'm like, all right, let me figure out something to do it. And so now Cam, my 5-year-old son, I got in trouble with him because he kept saying, Mama, you're working with all of these other kids on how to write their books. When do I get to write my book? So
I'm
now
with
he's
Cam.
writing a book. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I was able to change him even into a storybook character and put him on the cover for the new workbook. And
Nice.
his face when he sees himself, it is the cutest thing, but he for sure knows that I can just get this book done for him. But he's come up with the ideas for the entire book.
Nice. And he is such a sweetie pie. He yeah, I'm sure he witnessing all that you have done and all that you are capable of in his years. It's hard to believe that he's 5 for number one. That's why when you said his birthday, I'm like, 5. You
Yes.
know, again, it has been years. Um, but that's a beautiful concept to start out with, empowering the children, because
Mhm.
as you know, when we are discussing literacy and culturally responsive literacy development, culturally authentic, children must see themselves. It's one of the reasons why they do struggle and or are reluctant more often than none.
Mhm.
So being able to mirror, and then also being able to, because I know you probably have gotten this too. When I first started doing author visits, it was like, oh my God, you wrote that book. And it was like, yeah, you can too. You know,
Mhm.
the not relating to uh the author, and or so this is one of the other reasons why we do meet the author, because we understand that authors are people who really want to encourage you to also write and to read more, right?
Mhm.
So I love that. I love that. So Genius Patch was like, you was just doing you, and voila.
I said yes. That is,
Yeah.
I was doing some speaking engagements in Florida at the end of January, and I said that I said the sum of my life is a result of me saying yes out of pure curiosity to a lot of things. And
See, this is
Genius
why we
Patch is the
sisters.
same way.
Like, I don't know what's about to happen, but okay.
All right, let's
Yeah.
see. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did it beautifully. You got to think, ultra successful program, if it's especially it being in Ghana and we're talking about language, right?
Mhm.
Um, very, very connectedness in terms of community. So I love that. And I love that, these outside of empowering the children, because you just talked about the end of January and a trip, but when I'm watching your life unfold and all the things that you have done, they really are like all in the same pot, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Mhm.
It's a testament to, your love of culture, your love of family, community, and the things that you have ever so eloquently demonstrated. But talk a little bit about the work that you did between Genius Patch and becoming a Zora.Phile, becoming a Zora Neale Hurston scholar, because there's like this bridge that I know is there. I know it's there, but
Yeah.
other people don't know it's there.
Yeah, so that's true because people are like, okay, how does Zora Neale Hurston connect to children? And so I could talk about that probably for hours on end. But I will say that children led me to my love and knowledge of Zora Neale Hurston
Mm-hmm.
because when I was doing the Genius Patch program, I had a partnership and still do with Michigan State University's residential college in the arts and humanities. And so the professor, he would send down his students to actually facilitate my programs with after school, summer camp, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And so he said, okay, well, you have something special because these kids, you have 120 kids in a room. You don't have to yell, like they're always excited to see Miss Rae. So what is it about you? And let's test it out with my students on campus. And so he invited me to campus, and this was 2017, I believe. He said, okay, well, come teach your methodologies to my class. And so I was like, all right, I could always talk. So I went and talked to his class. And so he said, okay, well, you were really good with the K-6 kids in your program. You're really good with my college students. Why don't you come and do a Black history presentation? And he wanted me to do a presentation on a person from history, Black person, who most inspired my career as a writer. So when we talk about reluctant readers and children, I was one. I did not enjoy reading. I got tired of seeing images of kids who did not look like me. Their lives didn't reflect my reality. And so I didn't like to read, but I always liked to tell stories. So at first, I was honestly like, oh, well, I don't have anybody. But then he said these magic words. He said, I will pay you an honorarium. And I said, I had never had an honorarium before. So I said, well, I'll find someone. I feel very inspired suddenly. So again, yes, I felt very inspired at that point.
For real.
And so I had actually decided to do the presentation on Langston Hughes because new mother at the time, Cam was born in 2017. And so I was like, okay, I could brush up on some poetry pretty quickly. I love the idea that he used this simple language and talked about the everyday working class Black man. So I was like, okay, yeah, I can brush up on some poetry. But as I started researching him for the presentation, I didn't feel a personal connection. And even in my own work, like that's an important thing to me when we talk about connection. Do I understand this character? Because ideally, when you're developing a character, they need to be a whole person, right? And so Langston, even in this context, as a person, as a character, could not connect with him at all. I didn't get a feel of his true personality. At that time, he had to hide away certain parts of himself because of what was socially acceptable. And then he was just a little bit of a diva.
Yeah.
The Harlem Renaissance. So I didn't connect with him, but I kept seeing Zora.Phile Hurston's name pop up. And I was like, Zora.Phile Hurston, that lady who wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, the book I was assigned in high school that I didn't read.
Yeah. Funny how that even works. But yeah, we're going to talk about that too.
Like, ooh. But it was interesting, even in that standpoint, because I had never heard about Zora.Phile Hurston in conjunction with the Harlem Renaissance. And so here I am, this Black woman writer, always fantasizing about being a part of this huge artistic movement. And this is you're telling me a woman existed at this time who had a prolific career as a writer, but she's also a trained anthropologist. She grew up in the first all-Black incorporated municipality in the history of the United States, which just means legally established town. But that's 1887. And I'm like, how come no one told me about her? And then I got upset with myself because I was like, well, why didn't you choose to do the presentation on her? And so I did. I tacked her on. I had already turned in that I was doing it on Langston. So I tacked Zora onto the presentation as and Zora. And the whole time I was doing a presentation, I felt this sensation. Like, I don't know. I think I was getting in trouble with her. I will say that because I started sweating. I was like, what is going on? Every time I said and Zora. But I also felt more excited every time I was talking about her. And so I had made up my mind like midway through the presentation. If I ever had a chance to do another presentation, I would do it solely on Zora. And so right after it ended, Dr. Brooks came up to me and he said, all right, so what day do you want to do your presentation next year? And so that was me and Zora's deal. I have been presenting on her, researching her, traveling to Florida to go to locations relevant to her life and significant to her life since 2018. And it has been, as much as it's been intentional, it has been unintentional. And I'll say that because I have stumbled upon many things many times when I doubted my fitness for being a Zora.Phile Hurston scholar. Even doing that, oh, there's the sign for her hometown while I'm in Florida on a family vacation. And oh, somebody who was close to her family contacted me. And oh, here's someone asking me to do a presentation. And so as much as it was, I'll say her niece, her great niece told me, a lot of the questions that I asked Zora in my journey, she answers back in many ways.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the children led me to her, to be honest. If I had never started Genius Patch, the programs, Dr. Brooks wouldn't have invited me to do that Black history presentation.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that, our purpose is always just waiting for us to catch up, right? It's like, yeah, you're here to do this, but you
Mm-hmm.
can keep doing all that other stuff if you want. And when I remember when I first, now again, know what you do, for the most part, outside of us being friends, we'll watch, your posts and so forth. But it wasn't until the first time I showed up to a virtual event and actually listened to you speak about her. Now, that same thing, I have the book on my bookshelf, didn't finish reading it. And in my mind, I'm thinking, after that first time I saw you speak, I was like, whoa. Now, again, know the affiliation, know the Harlem Renaissance. Another one of Georgia Douglas Johnson, who
Mm-hmm.
was, she was around at that time, phenomenal poet, one of my favorite. So familiar with the movement, familiar with, all that the movement was able to accomplish. But Zora was just like, as you said, we don't have the privilege of learning about those individuals like we need to, in school. We just don't. We
Mm-hmm.
just don't, for a number of different reasons. So when I first heard you speak, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, did I miss something here? Especially along the points where, you talked about how fierce she was, how independent she was, her love life, just a lot resonated. And I was like, okay, Rae is onto something. Now, here's the caveat. Before Rae was Rae was someone else.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why this conversation is even so much more transformational. And I'm always like, oh my God, I'm so glad to see her doing this because of the way you were able to connect it to children and really bring it to life for children.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's been phenomenal to see. I'm rambling, but I'm just saying, like, the first time I saw you talk about her, I was like, yo, let me take another look at Zora,
Yeah.
Yeah, you have
And
that
that's
magic for sure. For
Thank
sure.
you. And
Yeah.
that's my thing, and I think that's what sets me apart as a scholar. So, just for everybody listening, I did not assign myself the title of Zora.Neale Hurston Scholar. Just recently, I was a featured speaker in her hometown of Eatonville at the end of January at the Eatonville Branch Library. And the Florida Humanities Council gave them a grant to bring me down as a Zora.Neale Hurston Scholar. And so it's pretty recent that I've ever thought about myself as such because my connection to Zora is so personal. And that's not academically how you approach scholarship traditionally. And so, like you said, I talk about Zora's love life. I talk about these different things. And typically, if anybody brings up pretty much anything, I could connect it to Zora.
Yeah.
Even when you said Georgia Douglas Johnson, Miss Georgia had a saloon in DC where all of these different artists, literary individuals, politicians would gather. And so Zora was one of those people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just like literally,
Yeah. Yeah.
we didn't talk
Just
about
dropping
that.
knowledge. But that just, it's a testament of not just how passionate you are, but how, and I say this, and you and I talk about this, how you are really living this. So when you said you got the sensation, on stage and you would say her name and she was tapping you on the shoulder, like, yo, put some
Don't you call
respect
me
on
no
that.
Ann.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put
Yeah. If
some
you know
respect on my
Zora,
name. Yeah.
yeah, don't ever call me an Ann and don't
Yeah.
put me second to Langston, especially because, I can never help it. I always have to give a
No,
couple
they beef.
facts about Zora.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so Langston Hughes and Zora.Neale Hurston were best friends during the Harlem Renaissance until they had a fallout over a play collaboration called Mulebone, which was refashioned from Zora's original work called The Bone of Contention. And so in 1931, I mean, it was lawyers involved. There was copyright stuff. It was crazy.
Oh, yeah.
But that was Zora was married 3 different times. In the love of her life, she didn't marry. But she said like that relationship disintegrating between her and Langston as best friends was the biggest heartbreak of her life.
Oh, I
So,
didn't
but
know that. I mean, I knew it was some beef. I knew about the beef,
it
but
was,
not,
yeah.
wow.
They say it's like one of the biggest, if not the biggest, literary feud in history between them.
It makes sense. I mean,
Yeah.
especially because of the movement, the timeliness. So, wow. Okay. So now we've gone from Genius Patch. You know, we're on the path to purpose. And you're speaking. You have the attention of the university. You just finished Zora Fest, like you talked about in Eatonville, and you're digging in more and more and more, and you're finding that there's a side of a story that you need to tell, that you're the author of.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I can announce it, but tell us about the work that you're working on right now.
Oh, yeah, you can announce it.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna let you do it because I'm like, I don't
Alright,
want to just
I
say
got
it. Yeah.
nervous. Alright, so when I started presenting on Zora in 2018, I felt like I had to apologize for making her, and, just as much as even us, they're human. Langston Hughes, Zora.Phile Hurston, they were
Hmm.
human, and so it's a whole lot of pettiness involved too. So me making Zora second to Langston had a big implication that I didn't understand then, but I felt like I needed to apologize as a woman and as a Black woman for making her secondary and not just making her to start a show. And so I started writing her letters like after my first presentation. And I didn't know why I felt compelled to do that. I traditionally have not written anybody letters.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, let me write Zora. And then I probably was like Miss Hurston. It was much more formal at the beginning. Let me write her some letters and apologize and let her know that I think I do want to do this work. And it was this crazy thing because I was really communicating across timelines and across energetic fields, if you will.
Hmm.
But I was like, well, I didn't think about it like that then. I was like, let me just write and try to communicate with her somehow. And so I kept writing her, and I've been writing her ever since then. And the frequency of the letters has changed based off of what's going on in my life or what's happening, but it has progressed just like a real friendship would, or a relationship. And so I decided to publish those letters into actually this book right behind me, Dear Zora.
See, you just moved, and I'm like, oh,
Oh
I
yeah,
didn't see
Zora
that
said, hey, she
before.
hangs out. This
She's
she
like, I
hangs
see
out.
you.
She's
Hmm.
like, you better say it right and don't tell all of my business. But I
Right.
decided to publish it into this book called Dear Zora, and it's sharing my journey, this very unexpected journey into becoming a Zora Neale Hurston scholar and to doing like any of the things that I've been doing. Even juicy stuff like love affairs. We talk about it because I feel like I've been researching her all in her business. So I'm like, well, here's some of my business, Zora.
Hmm.
But one of the things that's really exciting about it is that I was inspired by Zora's own struggle as I researched and got to learn her journey more. That there were other things she wanted to print. So she did four novels, two books of folklore, award winning autobiography, and over 50 short stories and plays. But even though she had two traditional publishers, they wouldn't publish things that showed the upper echelon of Black society.
Mm.
Her characters always had to be Black folk characters.
Yeah. Yeah. That
And
makes sense.
I was like, oh, yeah, yeah. So
Hmm.
in 1950, she wrote an essay called What White Publishers Won't Print. And I was like, okay, well, 70 years later, we still have this lack of diversity in printing. So what can I do about that? And before I found Zora, of course, I was a children's author, but I always had this dream of writing novels and getting a publishing deal and doing all of these other things. But I was scared to do it because I was comparing my really rough drafts to finalized, polished books that
Hmm.
had thousands and thousands of dollars of backing, professionals who were experts in their respective field, from graphic designers to do the cover design, to editors, to publicists. And so I felt like I could never do it until I read Zora's journey. So I said, well, what can I do to promote this encouragement, this inspiration? And so I decided to publish my manuscript of Dear Zora, which is a fancy way of saying the messy rough draft
Hmm.
of Dear Zora, so people can see where a manuscript starts and then where it evolves. So the manuscript version, which is called the Work in Progress edition of Dear Zora, is available right now on Amazon Kindle. And then the finalized version will come out later this year in the spring, hopefully sooner than later, because I'm hoping for spring real fast.
That in and of itself, and I want you to keep going, but when you made the announcement, because we had talked about it, you had some, personal stuff And I was really worried, like, what do you mean? What do you mean like, did you go to the hospital? But when we talked about the timing and the release, when you made the decision to say, I'm not going to rush this because this is really my life's work and it's sacred, I'm going to follow my flow and release as needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw it, I was like, okay, yeah, this is so more, right up Rae's, like this is her thing. She gets it. And I believe, just based on all that I know at this point, there's so much more to learn from you. But what I know of Zora, it's, being an anthropologist means that you're a scientist. You are experimenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
With what you believe is true, right? And you're looking for confirmation and affirmation in that. So I love the fact that you're releasing it as you see fit. Just
Mm-hmm.
you're listening to that inner voice. Um, so much so that you started a Facebook group.
Yeah, yeah, because it's interesting. I being an artist is hard. Like we have
Very.
our sensitivities, and I am no different. But I feel like one of the biggest things I realized is releasing things or having different conversations on the infinite black space of social media just wasn't for me. So I created a Facebook group called the Work in Progress Literary Club. And it is for people who really want to be involved, to be able to ask questions about the process, different questions about Zora, learn and interact with me, and really just be in conversation ongoing. And so it's called the Work in Progress Literary Club on Facebook. It is a private group, so you have to submit and say you'll follow the rules, why you want to join, et cetera, et cetera. But the feedback from the participants, the members in this group, will directly impact and influence the finalized version of Dear Zora. And our first meeting will be alive, and it's coming up March 2nd. And I'm very excited about that because I find like often there's this wall between the artists and the consumers of the art
Mm-hmm.
where you don't feel like you have genuine access to this person. And so that's one thing about me. Like I'm not a perfectionist. I'm not shy. So I
Yeah.
want to talk to people. I want to share what I know and even my process, but I didn't feel comfortable just like posting it on Instagram
Yeah.
or
Totally.
Facebook. So I'm like, the people who really want to know and be involved, like, let's create a group. And I think right now we have about 34 members, and it's a nice little cozy group to be in and talk about these things. And I think Zora will really love it because, unlike most of her contemporaries during the Harlem Renaissance, they wanted that idea W.E.B. Du Bois had about the talented 10. It was a very exclusive community, and they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to show a new Black aesthetic. And so Zora was like, no, how are you going to leave 90% of the race behind
Right.
to portray and to assimilate into white culture? And so I think like that's the same kind of idea. Instead of excluding the audience, like come in and be a participant
Mm-hmm.
with me and through
Yeah.
the process.
I love that too, because you think about the unique relationship that you want to foster. And we, with the Genius Patch, with being, an author in that way, going to meet the kids, engaging with the kids, that is priceless to me. It was priceless to
Mhm.
me. So now to be able to do it and to recreate that space, because there are a lot of challenges in, being an artist, being a mom, being a Black woman. Like there are many different challenges, and you're already a perfectionist, right? So you have that imposter syndrome. It's constantly creeping up and telling you, "Oh, this isn't good. This isn't good." But just to have that space, it's good reads, and there's some other means, some other options out there, but just to create that space with your warm and loving and kind demeanor, it just makes it so much better. It does. And the goal, of course, is to have anyone who's interested join, but also I see it as an incredible resource for educators. you
Mhm.
know um as an Afrofuturist, we talked about this a couple of years ago, that Black History Month is Kanye even did it, said, y'all, it's Black Futures now. Well, it's
Mhm.
been Black Futures for a while, from the futuristic standpoint, the
Mhm.
greats like Octavia, greats that we've had.
Mhm.
But I see as an opportunity for an ongoing conversation about how we look at and identify and define history, because this is indicative right now. It may have been that she lived once upon a time, but clearly she's living right now through you.
Yeah.
So that's not history anymore. Well, I mean, it is. It can be to a point, right? But
Mhm.
this really is futuristic, right?
Yeah.
So it's necessary. So I would encourage educators, fellow writers, join the club.
People
Join
who
the
just
club.
want to learn more about Zora.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, my personal mission is to amplify the stories of women and children of color, past, present, and future.
Yeah.
And so I never feel like it's an either or. I am that person who's like, well, how can we make it an and?
No, for
And
real.
so all of the
Both.
timelines, especially for us as Black people, and women, like it has to be all the timelines for us to see our power, because what Zora was doing in 1928, that's a lot of the stuff I'm trying to do now in 2022. But if we
Mm-hmm.
don't know that, we can't re-gift that to the future.
Yeah.
And so
Wisdom.
it is that intergenerational for me. And one thing I always forget to say about the book, Dear Zora, the part, like just writing and talking to her was easy for me most days. The part that was hard is I went back because I am my mentor, Reverend April. She always says, oh, yeah, you're definitely an educator. You're a born educator, regardless of if you went to school for education or not. That's ingrained in me. And so it's not just about me holding on to the knowledge and me being the single source to give it, to talk about it. The book actually has annotations and context. So, of course, me and Zora are having casual conversations about certain people that you may not know about, or certain things that she's done that you may not know about as the reader. But I
Mm-hmm.
give context, I give citations for you to start your own research too, or just gain some further insight and knowledge surrounding what we're talking about in the letters. And so it's part memoir and it's part biographical of Zora. And then at the start, the hardest part was coming up with the chronology, because Zora's life itself was a lot like the folklore she collected. It's different on the tongue of every person
Mm-hmm.
who tells it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And she,
She like, I did it that way on purpose.
yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
she worked in a lot of those great mechanics of a story and of folklore to make sure that we stayed curious about her, and a research on her would keep going. Actually, I don't know if I told you, but Valerie Boyd, who was the biographer of Zora, she wrote her biography, Wrapped in Rainbows, The Life of Zora Neale Hurston. That book baptized me. It was like 600 pages, this huge book. And it was the biggest book I
What?
had ever written. But that is when I was like, I think I'm in this deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
I read that book cover to cover, and that's where I launched my own research journey. But Valerie Boyd actually passed away on February 12th. And so that was,
Oh.
yeah. And so that, I mean, I definitely had some grieving and have some mourning still to do when it comes to that, because we were in email communication. I remember the day that she liked one of my posts on Instagram, and I just like literally lost my
That
mind.
was $1 million, girl. Yeah.
Yes, because
Yeah.
she even, like, her book that's coming out April 22nd is a collection of Alice Walker's journals that she edited.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay, so I didn't know she passed. And
yeah.
what's the even with the timeliness of all that you've gone through, like all the speaking engagements? Like honestly, ladies and gentlemen, this really is fortunate to be able to spend this time with Rae, because she posted the other day and she had like 6 events back to back. And I'm like, wait a minute. Here I am thinking I'm special. We're going to meet the author. It's Sunday. You got 5 other shows before and after. And then, like you said, you just came back from Eatonville, which was an experience in and of itself.
Mhm.
I'm just thinking of, again, the timeliness. What's the chance that she would transition in all of your transition,
Yeah.
being able to just put that together. That's big. That's
And
big.
it is. And I mean, for me, I consider, so she's one of the most heavily cited books in my book.
Yeah.
When people say, okay, well, where should I start? Okay, you like nonfiction, you like fiction, you like folklore. Are you interested in voodoo and conjure? So I give that, but Valerie Boyd is always my top recommendation because she was actually profiled by Robert Hemingway, not Hemingway, Hemingway. And Robert Hemingway was a white male scholar. And so Valerie told the story of going to Zora Fest in Eatonville. And she attended one year where Robert Hemingway critiqued his own biography on Zora Neale Hurston. And he said the next person who writes a biography on her needs to be a Black woman. And at that time, she hadn't, like, Valerie wasn't, I think she might have said she was in her early 30s. She was just attending the festival and she felt compelled to pick
Yeah.
up this torch and write
Yeah.
this book. And so I feel like there's always this passing of a torch, but Alice Walker and Valerie Boyd, um, Alice Walker actually was a speaker at one of the first, if not the first, Zora Neale Hurston festivals in Eatonville. And Valerie Boyd was an attendee. And now you fast forward to 2022, but even in 2019, Valerie Boyd went to the festival with Alice Walker as part of her entourage.
Yeah.
And so
Big deal.
it's like this invisible thread, I guess, if you will, that seems to be getting passed. And I'm just honored to even be in a sentence with Alice Walker and
A
Valerie Boyd.
sentence. Yeah. No,
Because
because it's a
Alice
big deal.
Walker is the one who found Zora's unmarked grave, even though whole nother story. Money was raised, about $600, and they still buried Zora Neale Hurston in an unmarked grave. She had a funeral, everything. And so in the 70s, Alice Walker and her friend Charlotte Hunt, who was a high school teacher writing a dissertation on Zora, they decided to go down to Fort Pierce, Florida, and to try to find Zora's unmarked grave. And so it was a spiritual process for Alice Walker. And then Zora's biographer, Valerie Boyd, and Alice connect. So when Valerie Boyd reached out to me or commented on my post and I sent her a picture of me with her book, it was like this torch, I think, was passing or just welcoming into these women who are called, especially Black women who are called to do this work, to share the legacy and life of Zora in this loving way. Because Valerie definitely did it scholarly, but it's a lot of love that only a Black woman could express in such way. The details, she tells you her favorite food, her favorite flower. And that is where I started getting to know Zora for myself.
And it really is, it's you. I mean, and you say a Black woman, I'm like, yeah, but it's you. I mean, and I just want to say, I hadn't even certain things that, appeal to me. And it's like, okay, this is interesting. But when you can see through it and you're like, no, there's something big here, it again speaks to the big why, I believe, right? When we're talking about inspiring a generation of, yeah, totally. Here, your commitment is tangible, Rae. And that's Irie, dear friend, who's also an author in the UK. Love, love, love Irie. Like, she's been, oh my God, she's just phenomenal individual. I'm so gracious to know, so many wonderful people. But it's one of the things that I've told you, and I continuously tell you, like, no, this is you. This is your assignment. And you are unearthing all of this, and it's your consent. You're just wrapping yourself up in it, because this is the purpose, right? If I'm teaching you, okay, read, get to know who you are, get to understand who you are, configure the wisdom, be able to navigate that, then yes, you will find yourself in every reader and every writer. That's part of it. So that's like a big deal. So, all right. So you've done these things. You're highly recognized. Somebody else has coined you a scholar. You're in communication with Miss Boyd. All of the ins and outs. The book is coming out. Well, I guess a little bit of piece in here is, you used to do a lot of motivational stuff. So I think and I'm like, oh, don't shoot me, right? But what's next? Like, I'm so excited about what's next, and not jumping ahead too far, but like, where will the releasing of like the final version take us? What else can we expect, on the journey?
Oh man. So I was talking to a group yesterday online called Books We Should Have Read. And so someone asked, like, what advice would you give someone who wants to do this type of work? And so it's really a belief that I have adopted, because of course we can always think about what we want to do, but then there's these fantastic things that just seem to happen.
Yeah,
And I
totally.
believe that for me, I always leave at least 50% space for
For
the
the
unknown,
unknown. Yeah.
because I do believe, like, Zora and I, there are certain things that she has done even when I went down in July before I knew I would be speaking at Zora Fest. So last year, July, and I told her before I left, I was like, Zora, if you want me to do this work, because we're like that now. If
Yeah.
you want me to do this work, I need you to crack Florida wide open for me. And sure enough, I will say that is what happened.
Yeah.
Even things like being able to get special access to her collection at University of Florida without even knowing there was a collection there. That happened on the first day I stepped foot in Florida.
Mm.
These natural connections. So it's as much her as it is me. So I'm going to leave the space, and it's good because it takes some of the pressure off. The
Oh,
things
I'm
come
sure.
my way, and I say yes or no. Like,
Yeah.
right now, I'm just focusing on getting the book done, because there's some exciting things. So I will tell you something I don't think I've said anywhere else, maybe in person speaking engagements. But Zora's great niece is writing the foreword for the final version. And she,
Nice.
like, that again, that's another thing. Like, I couldn't have said, "Hey Zora, I want to connect with your great niece," you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the way that happened, and we're pretty good friends now. She knows very intimate details about my life and vice versa. And so I'm not gonna say what is next. I don't 100% know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. So timeline again is, it's a work in progress. It's available for sale right now on Amazon. Is that the only retailer?
Yeah, I'm gonna do Amazon right now. If you join the group, you might
Okay.
get to read the PDF version, which is a mess, but the
Yeah.
Kindle version, I was thinking about, and I'm still thinking about it, doing some limited release copies signed by
Totally.
me. And so
Totally.
maybe like a limited, like 100, where people can actually buy it if they want to see the physical book. So this is the physical book. And I actually printed that for myself so I could go through and proof it because I got tired of looking at the computer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
might do that. Who knows? It might become a set that people can buy. But we will see. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens. I'm always open, and Zora takes me on adventures all over. So we'll see.
That connection in and of itself, I'm telling you, it's amazing. And I do believe, I talk about this regularly, not just in my professional, but it's personal, as well, legacy,
Mm-hmm.
being able to carry on and to leave that blueprint. I've said it before, the Librarian of Congress right now, will be in office another 2 years. We've got another 2 years to get all of this, incredible wisdom out of us and our elders who are transitioning at what we believe is higher rates, because of all that's going on in the world. And so we really do have an obligation to tell these stories. And like you said, the perfection is not more important than a story in and of itself. And you're living the story, right? Like you're living it and trying to, write it down. And as anyone who knows as an author, that's a bit to converge, but you're doing it and you're doing it so gracefully. Like when I'm telling you, when I just hear you talk about her and like it's a different light, you know? So it means a big, big deal. And I'm going to thank you just because, like I said, I'm like, well, I have the book and I didn't finish reading it, but yeah, I know who she is. I know, I know who she's done. But once I started listening to you talk about her, I'm like, well, wait, maybe I don't know anything, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and she's like a treasure hunt too. I don't even know if I think I did tell you, because Their Eyes Were Watching God. She wrote it in 7 weeks. When she sailed to Jamaica and Haiti, she was in Haiti when she wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God, and she had left the relationship with the man she was actually in love with. She
Mm.
said she didn't leap or fall in love; she made a parachute jump. And so it was a bad relationship because she would get jealous. He was much younger than her, 20 years
Yeah.
plus. And so she would get jealous if she thought he had eyes for another woman his age. And then he was jealous of her prestige. So then you think we're talking about 1936 and 37, a woman who's selling around the world to other countries, and a Black woman at that, to be an anthropologist. She had already had so much status in New York. And so she would get invited to these different things, and he would start fights with her. She would start fights with him. So she actually left without even saying goodbye to him.
Oh,
And she
wow.
said that if she would have seen him, she knew she would have lost all her courage and not went. And so there's a lot of biographical facts between Janie Crawford, who's the main character in Their Eyes Watching God, and Zora. And Tea Cake is inspired by the love of Zora's
The
life,
love. Yeah.
Ursula Punter. So
Yeah.
when I read her stuff, I'm like, Zora, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah. Let me put this together.
Let me put
Because
this together.
even in that story, I know we had briefly talked about that, but that was one of the other things that appealed to me. Just, her fierce independence and how she was, you know, she was committed. She was like, no, I got to do this work. When you were talking about, when was the last time we talked, and you were talking about how she would get in her car, she'd have her, she'd be strapped. She'd be like,
Yeah.
I'm out,
Yeah.
but that in it of itself, again, speaks to where we are right now as artists, as women, right, who understand that the calling will not stop calling until we answer, and we must answer fully. There could be other things that we believe are important. I say it that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they may very well be, but when it calls,
Yeah.
you better answer, or you get dragged. And it'll
Yeah,
haunt
yeah,
you.
the universe will just drag you along.
Totally.
And I think it's interesting. I think that's the author side. Like, is that the right word that I want to use to describe her? I feel more than anything, Zora was compelled.
Yeah.
And so
Totally.
it wasn't as much as the calling needed her permission
Yeah. Yeah.
for her to make the sacrifices she had to make to do what she did. She just felt compelled. Her first husband, Herbert Sheen, actually said she had a priest-like devotion to her work.
Mm-hmm.
So it was
Mm-hmm.
like beyond her. And now I understand that. So life might look
Totally.
glamorous. I think I posted on social media about my glamorous life. We're
Yeah.
having to get eyelashes out of my kid's eye. He came home an hour early from school, an hour before I had my first speaking engagement on Wednesday, and I had two that day, and I had to like triage him in the kitchen, which is hilarious. But it seems so glamorous, right? When we teach history a certain way, when we say like, "Hey, this is just what someone accomplished," but then when you get the backstory in, when you start talking about the real human aspect of it, Zora was brokenhearted. She called herself a careerist, and it seemed to fight every feminist thing that she is largely celebrated for, where it seemed like she regretted having chosen her career over just being a domestic wife and woman. But what is clear to me and what I know through personal experience now, like you don't always get a choice. Like
Yeah.
when you're that chosen one, you don't, and it comes with a lot of heartbreak. A lot
Yeah.
of heartbreak. So that was the case for her. I think she was compelled more than she was just independent and fierce.
Yeah. And this is again attributing to, being an author and understanding that there are layers. Of course, there are sides to the story, but there are layers in each side. And so you seeing it where it's, yeah, well, she was compelled, and that,
Yeah.
it would have been a lot more difficult for her to also be compelled and committed to these things as well. And so I love that we just said that, because sometimes it seems as, oh, well, you can have it all. Well, yeah, if that's truly what you want, I'm sure anything is possible. But
Hmm.
sometimes there are really, really strong calling, on our lives that, yeah, that would be nice. But with great power comes, great
Yeah.
responsibility. You have to see it through.
And I think
So,
I'm the same. I think I'm
yeah,
the same. So when it comes to Zora, I am compelled to
yeah,
share the life and legacy
you
of
are.
Zora Hurston. I feel like I'm committed to helping children fall in love with literacy and
Yeah,
themselves through literacy. So
yeah,
that's a bit different thing, because yes, I absolutely love serving children. And so it's me being committed, saying no matter what, I'm going to figure out ways to include them. But with Zora, it's a big piece that I have not agreed to
Yeah.
that is happening regardless of what, like even going down to Eatonville to do the speaking engagements during Zora Fest, and I get down there and I find out I'm on the town's their home page of their website. And I'm like, I couldn't have like I would
What? Right.
compelled. That's
Yeah.
no action of mine. These
Yeah.
are the things that are happening regardless of what what I want or what I think to even ask for. So compelled versus committed. She was compelled to collect, to preserve the stories of authentic Black life and to find that connection to our West African roots.
Hmm.
She was compelled.
You see how, and you just said it, and you're like, well, my job was, this is what I started off on, and I wanted to be able to teach young people through, literacy. But again, I can't help but to just remind you, it's like, but you're the embodiment of that.
Mhm.
And you have been able to leverage that power in the becoming. Like, this is what happens when you connect with someone's story. Like, it's powerful beyond measure. And this is the place where we can imagine, we can solve tough problems, we can understand. There's so much richness there that I just absolutely love. Like, I knew this conversation was going to be phenomenal. I did. I
Nice.
did.
I think
Golly.
you're probably the only person I would at this point talk to on a Sunday. Sundays are usually my quiet days, and when you asked, I was like, "Of course."
No, for real. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate you. I'm hoping that those watching have enjoyed our time together. We're coming up on an hour. I just really want everyone, if you can, because the internet is loud, it's
Mhm.
constantly on and going. And so it's, oh, follow me, do this. But Rae is someone I would strongly follow her on Instagram, Facebook. Well, I know we have Zora.Phile on
Mhm.
Instagram, right?
Mhm.
We also have Rae Chesny on Instagram.
Mhm.
What is it on Facebook?
It's Rae Chesny. So
Rae
yeah, I will
Chesny.
follow Rae Chesny for now.
Okay.
Zora.Phile is kind of quiet right now. I do
Okay.
have some stuff that I'm thinking about doing with it that I can't quite announce yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, follow me, Rae Chesny, on Instagram and Facebook.
And really dig deeper into the life and times and what was happening around that time, because what we're seeing right now with social justice and artivism, we're seeing a lot of that bubble up even right now when we're talking about the
Mhm.
Harlem Renaissance, right?
Mhm.
And this global, Black authors. This is how I've always believed. We talk about literacy, language, and communication. This is how we build bridges.
Mhm.
You don't understand if you haven't even listened to my story, you
Mhm.
know? And so this needs to be a conversation well beyond Black History Month, you
Mhm.
know? It needs to be an everyday conversation that, the science, anthropology in and of itself, just fascinating, right?
Mhm.
Being a writer, being a phenomenal storyteller, and still living, and, being Black elite, they just had, I don't know if they're going to renew it. Our kind of people, that was, I don't know if they're going to renew it, but it gives you a snapshot where you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait a minute. Hmm. You know?
Mhm.
So there's so much there that, Black or otherwise, it's a beautiful depiction. And these are the conversations that we need to continue to have. So I'm very grateful that you have taken your Sunday, because you could be doing something with my baby, or his sweet self. You could be doing anything, but I'm so gracious that you've chosen to be here. My lights just went out, and I'm like, really? Batteries? Hmm. So,
Well, it
so
was
I'm
absolutely
grateful.
a pleasure.
I'm
And
grateful.
and I will say you mentioned the Harlem Renaissance in that time period, with lots of ties to what's going on now. As
Hmm.
I actually have a Zora presentation through the Center for Health and Wellbeing in Winter Park on the 23rd. So that's next Wednesday
Oh,
at
yeah.
6 p.m., if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken. But it's right on their website, and it is Zora Neale Hurston, Queen of the Harlem Renaissance. So I'll be tying in some political aspects that are lesser known when we talk about the artistic movement of the Harlem Renaissance, and just who Zora was and what she did, and how those things she did still exist tangibly today. And so it is free to the public. It's virtual, so you guys can hop on in your PJs and we can hang out. I always treat my Zora presentations like a conversation, and so that one will be no different. And I'm
Yeah.
excited for that one.
Yeah, I mean, they're incredible. Even on the clip that you had just posted, where the guy was like, "You may present the same things, or you may do something, but it comes across like it really is an experience." And experiences are what we're selling in the metaverse now.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I'm saying, if you're looking for something different and unique and something that will really mirror this rich history, you've got to hear Rae talk about her. Because I'm telling you, I was like, okay, let me check this out. And when I got off that call, I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing with my life?
Let me see
And
what Zora was talking about.
no, seriously. And it has been, even with Valerie Boyd, now you have me, anticipating, the Alice Walker Project, and wanting to read, her biography, Wrapped in Rainbows. Like, I'm wanting to read it now. Like, there's a lot that you just said that is, nestled there. So I'm excited for you, my dear. I really am. I just wish you all of the best, all the joy your heart can hold, because I know how compelled you are, and I know how effortless it is. Like, it's natural. It's not okay, like you said, okay, I'm gonna do my notes. No, like the way it just rolls off. It's incredible.
Well,
It's
thank you so
incredible.
much.
It's
Thank you.
incredible. Yeah, yeah.
Hopefully you can make it next week. She asked lots of questions.
Yeah, I think the 23rd, I don't think I have anything. Yeah, for sure. I'll be sure to, and I know you'll probably post it, then I'll just repost it.
Okay.
So that, yeah, our audience can take a look. What happens is uh our Facebook page is doing something really weird. We've reached out to Facebook. So normally I would download this and make it available on our YouTube channel for those who may have missed it. I'm still going to do that as soon as I am able. But for now, it'll be housed on our Facebook page. So please feel free to share it with those that you believe would really, really like this conversation, because it's a big deal. And follow Rae. Like, again, follow her. Like, she's just, there's this picture she just took that I'm like, oh my God, that picture. Like, I just want to frame it. The picture, where you're standing in front of her big picture. And I'm
Oh
like,
yeah, the mural.
oh,
Yeah, on the playground.
yes,
Yeah.
beautiful. So follow her, be inspired, learn something new. At the end of the day, unity consciousness is a thing. We are one people. We all have a tremendous story to tell and to hear. So that's the name of the game. So thank you, my dear.
Thank
Thank you, thank you,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who tuned in.
Yes, indeedy, indeedy. Well, thank you all. Like Rae just said, feel free to share, comment, or what have you, and join us. We'll be doing Meet the Author every third Sunday. I think I might have got my dates mixed up for April. We have some incredible guests lined up till July. So
Wow.
I'm excited. Yeah, this is the first time, because last year, we were just getting our feet wet and it went over. It was phenomenal. So this year we're like getting ahead of it, and we have some incredible people coming up. So yeah, wanted to make sure we got you in there for sure, because you about to blow up.
I received that.
Yes, ma'am. All righty, my love. Thank you again. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon.
All
All
right.
righty. Okay.
Bye.